You also said something earlier about the things that you coach on and what you help with, and one of those being delivering feedback and
Mm,
helping reps that are struggling. So when you're coaching a manager who's coaching a rep that's underperforming,
mm.
what is the talk track that you're giving them? Right? We know don't make it a surprise. If you have an underperformer and you need to have an accountability, corrective action conversation, it shouldn't be a surprise. We
Mm.
already know that, I think. But what else do you coach them around in terms of delivering, tough feedback, tough love, if you will?
Yeah, definitely. So I've been in that position myself, and I've been that person that's have had to deliver it, and I've had to, help people that are going to have to deliver it as well. So I think coming back to your earlier point of being human, being authentic and being open and vulnerable is one of the key things that you need to take into consideration. And especially for a rep that might be completely new to this game and
Right.
industry as well, we have to give them a little bit of grace. So when I'm speaking to a manager and he or she comes to me and says, Neil, I've got this rep here, they're not hitting the numbers, they're not doing this, there's no love, there's no passion in it, there's just, I don't know what the hell to do and I'm pulling my hair out. What should I do? And my initial question to them is, why do you think that this is a problem for them? And I want you to give me every answer that you can, whether it be, granular, metric driven, but also, what could be going on in that rep's mind? Are there any other factors, affecting them in their work and their day to day life? Because some things with underperformance, I've realized is not because of the workplace. And sometimes it's not the actual targets, it's stuff going on in their personal life, you
Facts.
know?
Hmm.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing that I've really tried to do being a manager or a coach or trainer or anything like that, when I'm meeting somebody for, a catch up or a one to one, the first question I ask them is, how are you? And normally, Derek, what you hear is, yeah, do you know what? Things are going great. I'm sending out some sequences. I've got some people contact me on LinkedIn, da 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 da. And I'm like, cut that for a minute. Can I just ask you one more time? Like, how are you? How are you as the person doing? And sometimes things that I've heard is just like, do you know what, Neil? I'm really worried about work, or something's happened at home, or something's going on in my personal life and it's really screwing my head a bit. I'm like, cool. Let's forget about work for a minute and let's talk about that. Again, you can share what you want or you can keep what you want within yourself. Either way, I'm cool with it.
Right.
So the first thing I say to a manager is just have an honest conversation with them. And if it's possible in this day and age, to go out for a lunch or a coffee and do it face to face and get away from the workplace. And for a moment, Derek, take your manager hat off and just speak to this person on a one-to-one level. Now, there are two sides to this. There could be the person that is genuinely, they've got something going on that's not great and it's not happening and it's not working. There's stuff going on in life. And then the other side of the coin is this person just does not love what they're doing and they don't really have an interest or vested interest to continue in what they're doing. So I'll take the first one, where it's, a personal thing going on. So I say to the manager is like, allow them to come to you with the problem and explain it in their own words and kind of preface it by saying like, look, I'm taking my manager hat off and I just want you to talk to me as Neil. What's going down? What's going on? And is there anything I can do to help? And then whilst this is going on, then share something about yourself. Be a little bit vulnerable. I think
I think that
what's
creates the
helped.
opening right there, right?
Yeah, yeah,
Hmm.
exactly. So if I've got a brand new SDR and they're telling me they're struggling, they're worrying about their number, they're comparing themselves to their other reps and their peers, which happens naturally.
Right.
I then say to them, well, hey, look, when I was first an SDR, I remember being in an office in London and I'd never worked in tech before. And I had my VP of global sitting next to me and all the account executives, and they were talking about numbers and a forecast. And I had no idea what the hell they were talking about. And it scared the bejesus out of me. And I said for the first 3 or 4 weeks, I kept asking myself, am I in the right job? Am I in the right
Yeah, over my
place?
head, maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
And I felt like an imposter. And I said, but you know what? Things kind of worked out. But I had a good conversation with my boss every now and then to, talk about this sort of stuff. So I've been there. So relating their story to yours to an extent helps, build that relationship
Don't
and
make it
rapport.
about you, but intentionally
Yeah.
let them know that, hey, I can relate, and then tie it back to what they're going through. I find the exact same thing works when someone's saying they're struggling with X in their personal life. If I have something remotely similar to that, it's an opportunity for me to be open and honest, not make it about me, but say, hey, look, I
Mm,
can feel what you're going through a bit here. Um,
Yeah.
it's the genuine piece, right? Like you have to
Mm.
be genuine about it. It can't be this, okay, and now I'm in empathetic mode. Let me be this phony empathetic leader. It has
Yeah.
to be this, yeah, I don't, we'll stay here an extra half an hour if we need to. Like, I give a shit about you, man. You good? Like,
Yeah.
let's
Yeah.
talk. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. And you know, after having these sort of conversations and bringing those things out of that person and allowing them to know that this is a safe space,
Hmm.
you know, I'm not going to bite your head off. I'm not going to, if anything, my job is to make you successful. But the only way I can make you successful is knowing what do you need. And is that emotional support? Is it like understanding your tools, your process and stuff like that? We can do that. That's my job as a manager to help you out as well. So that's one side of the coin is just, you know, be open, be vulnerable, tell them that it's a safe space and that you can talk confidentially. And it's not gonna result them being fired for being honest. If you're scared,
Right.
put your hand up, right?
Right. Now, if they
Now,
don't love what they do, though, this is something different, right?
yeah, yeah. So coming into this piece, the rep that doesn't really like it or love it, we need to have a conversation about it. And it's, you know, I've coached, managed, and trained over like 500 reps in my time, and
Wow.
I can see the buying signals when that stuff is happening, right? And you have to be very mindful how you go into that conversation. So, like
Mm,
2 years ago, I was in one company where I had 2 or 3 reps that were kind of in that space, right? And again, it was let's go out for a coffee, let's go out for a chat, and let's just sit down. I just want to, you know, walk through some stuff. And the way that I went into that conversation would be like, so Derek, you know, like when we go onto Hangouts or Zooms, I kind of see that you're not always present. Sometimes your screen's off, your camera's off. I can also see like with numbers, you know, activity's dipped a little bit. And sometimes, you know, in your outreach, I'm just not seeing a spark as once I did before. And it's just got me a little bit worried. And I just want to know, is everything okay? And what I'm doing is I'm surfacing the problems that I'm observing and seeing, but not being judgmental about it, but just bringing it up and then
drawing any
saying to the rep,
conclusions. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Like, I'm not going to say, hey, you're doing bad, you're doing shit, this isn't working, you need to get the hell out. It's not even that type of conversation, right? But it's these are the things I'm observing. And I just wanted to know, in your own words, what's going down, right? Um, and sometimes initially the first scratching of the surface is, well, you know what, I don't think that I'm doing this and I'm trying my hardest and I'm trying my best and I'm doing this and I'm doing that. I'm like, cool. So what do you think we can do together to get this back up on point and on
Well,
plan?
let me back up there for a second. Let me interrupt
Yeah.
you. In my experience, it's rarely, and it depends on the individual, right? So let's not draw any broad brushstrokes here.
Yeah.
But in my experience, often when you have that conversation with the person who doesn't love what they do, the response isn't, I'm not making enough calls, I'm not trying hard enough, I'm not practicing, I'm not doing my part. Most often what I hear is, well, the tools suck, the process is screwed up, I'm confused about who my manager is, they haven't paid me for last month's meetings or deals, and there's this lack of accountability that you hear often
Mm-hmm.
in that context that you were giving, like
Yeah.
the person doesn't love what they do.
Mm.
um, so can you unpack that though, right? That's
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
more difficult conversations when someone's starting to point the finger, and we don't want to necessarily say, dude, hey, you're pointing the finger, or
Yeah.
like, we want to approach that in the right manner. But for a leader, it's one of those things in the back of your mind, you're like, man, just own this. You would do so much better if you just focused on what you can control and stop obsessing on the things around you that, yeah, of course, they may not be perfect. And in a lot of startup environments, there's a lot of change and things are developing. But
Mm.
what would you say to that person who's pointing the finger at everything else around and the environmental conditions as why they're not being successful?
Very, very good question. And again, it's something I experienced, and a VP of sales kind of coached me on how to figure out this sort of conversation. So this VP said, when you're bringing up a problem with a problematic rep and they're pointing the finger at everyone, what they're doing is excuses.
Mhm.
If you hear excuse after excuse, like the tool's not working, you know, comp's not being paid, or this isn't happening, or this isn't happening, then that's one thing. But if you hear somebody come up with an excuse, but a solution to that problem, well, if we had this platform in and we've had this and we had this and we had this, then I think it would start working. If I had more clarity on my comp plan and my territory and I knew what was happening, this like this, then I think I could move forward. So there's a difference between the person who's just giving excuses, but the one that's also giving the
Who's
solutions
being
as well.
constructive. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly. So if we deal with the person that is just giving excuses, what I then say to them is, I'll give them a bit of grace because first off, they've now realized that I see the problem. So things are aware. I will then say, okay, if I can take these things off your plate, can we agree that hopefully things should improve from that point on? And normally what you hear is, yeah, of course. So a week or two goes by, I've solved all the problems. I've spoken to RevOps, I've spoken to finance, I've spoken to marketing, I've spoken to the sales leader, told him what's going down. And if we're still in the same place, I will then come back to that person and say, right, last time we spoke, you said this, 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 I fixed this, but here we are. Can you tell me how we got here? Rather than saying, what have you done wrong? How did we get here?
The we and
Now it's
us
an
language. Yeah.
yeah,
Brilliant.
exactly. And if they don't have an answer, then I'm like, well, look, here's the reality. If when we're talking about targets, if I can see you putting in enough activity, but you're low on targets, I can defend you because it shows that you're trying. If your activity is low, but you're on track with your number, then there's nothing to worry about. But if I have activity and I have target low, then I can't defend you. And that's the reality of it. And this could be a route that we're going to have to go down in terms of performance and, pips and things like that. And I always say to them, I don't want to go to that route, but I have to let you know that is a potential eventuality, right?
Right.
So I went through this three times begrudgingly with some people in the past, and it did end up being on a pip. And before we went on to the pip, I kind of said to them, look, this is what's going to happen. We're going to put a pip in place, but it'll be an informal pip. You get one chance on the informal pip to try and improve things. If it doesn't improve, then it goes on to a formal pip. If it doesn't work on the formal pip, then the reality is it could be termination. I have to be honest and upfront with you on this.
Right. Right.
And normally, Derek, a pip is really a last resort, and hence why I say make the first pip informal. When I've shown the informal pip, I will then either have a rep saying to me, I'm happy to go in all on this. Let's make it work. I really love this job. I want to go. Or I'll have somebody say to me, I can't be bothered with that. I don't think this is something I should be doing.
Yeah. A lot of times it self-fixes itself. They start looking and,
yeah,
they end up leaving or something like that. Or I've had people on PIP that have turned it around. I think the important thing about when you're starting to explain that PIP process, you also have to include how someone gets off the PIP. And often we miss that when we look at programs. A lot of organizations I meet with don't even have a PIP policy. So if you're listening to this and you're a revenue leader, get that in place, and don't be afraid to have that conversation early in the hiring process when they're onboarding and explaining. Have it in your playbook. Like, this is what happens when people don't perform well. We always are really good about talking about the upside and the accelerators, but let them know that there's the opposite side of it. But yeah, explaining that what it takes to get off the PIP plan, I think, is an important piece in those dialogues as well, so that they have to understand there's hope to this. This isn't a foregone conclusion that we're separating. This is just another way of lighting a fire, and for me to hold me accountable as your leader to help you in a very strategic and tactful way. I'm going to spend more time with those that are on a performance plan than those that aren't, and that's just the reality of it, right?
Yeah, 100%. And I think you alluded to a very good point. When you're going through the hiring process, the one thing that I used to be bad on was just not amplifying the fact that this is a metric-based role and it is based on targets and KPIs. Yeah, so I live in an ideal world where I'm like, anybody can get into sales development, anybody can get into sales, and that is true. A lot of people can get into this game, like I did,
right,
and like yourself, right? But reminding them that this is an entry role, not just to sales, but a whole company. But in this first role, you are driven based on your numbers and your performance. So I just want to know, are you up for somebody that's going to be doing dials, sending out outreach, having conversations, updating your CRM? I'll teach you how to do these and I'll make you productive in doing so, but are you on board? And, if things don't work out, then we're happy to raise a flag early our side. And equally, you can raise a flag and let me know if this isn't a fit for you. Because for those that I've either been put on PIP or I've helped them go through the PIP and they've come out the other side winning, I've even had people that have gone through the PIP, they've won it, and they then have come to the conclusion that sales isn't for them.
Wow. Wow, it's
yeah,
deep.
and,
wow.
and I remember taking this one.
They went through that whole thing. They walked on coals and they said, "Yeah, I'm good.
This isn't for me." But the feedback I got from them was, I now realize the pip was there for a reason. You actually did help me, and I actually saw the result and the impact of being coached that way. But it also did make me realize that maybe sales isn't for me. And I'm like, as long as you have come to that conclusion, I'm happy to support you in that.
Right.
I'm really sad to see you leave. But I also say it to the people that I put on PIP who say they don't want to do this gig, or they've come to a bitter end on it. I'm like, if there's any way that I can help you get into another company, or I can do an introduction, I'm happy to get you there. Or if I can help you get into another department where you think you'll actually have more fun and have more fulfillment from your job, I'm happy to do that for you. I'm happy to bat for you.
Mhm.
But if you give me nothing and you give me no results, then there isn't much I can do.
I can't
Does
defend
that? I
you
know
and
that's
I
been a
can't support
roundabout
you.
answer.
No,
Yeah,
no, that's
exactly.
spot on. That's spot on because, the coaching isn't just about the skill set in that exact role. You're coaching people to be better and to be happy,
Mm,
right? And be
mm.
fulfilled. And so sometimes coaching people and helping them move on in their career, often in my experience, those folks end up going on to do bigger and better things. They
Better
go into
things, yeah.
environments that they're truly fulfilled and happy in.
Yeah.
And it may not be the path that we as individuals would want, or I sort of envisioned, but we don't all have a crystal ball here. And so that's why we have to understand that sometimes we're helping them get into a better position. And if we go
Mm.
through this process of coaching on a regular basis, right, we're doing that level of effort, we're going down that performance plan, we're spending the time, we're being very prescriptive about this, and it still doesn't work out, then let's pay attention to the signals. And I've seen many times where reps that we've parted ways with have gone on and grown their career and done great things. So I
Yeah.
know it's the hardest part about the job is taking people down that path. It keeps us up at night as leaders as much as it keeps the other person up realistically, if you
Mm.
care about people, if you're that type of leader.